Welcome everyone to Read the Book First. This week we're going to be talking about The Wild Robot by Peter Brown, and we being Amanda and Amanda's here.
Hi guys.
I wanted to read this book with Amanda, with you specifically, because we taught together in a middle school. Though reading this book, this is definitely lower than middle grade. It's definitely a chapter book, you know. So we've talked about kid lit.
Yes,
all the time.
It's an area of expertise.
You might say that. Yeah. Anyways, because I saw it was turning into a movie and I was like, okay, we got to get this. I didn't actually watch the trailer with the sound on because I was like, I don't know, at work or out and about when I saw the trailer for the movie. So I did not know the plot until reading this. And so like at certain points I was like, wait, this is happening in this book.
I think I saw the trailer for this at some point when I was like watching a movie, like going to a movie.
Yeah.
And I saw the trailer then.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, I better make sure I watch that. And then,
Then I was like, we're reading this. And you're like, okay.
Cool. Guess I got to read the book first.
Nice. Who paid you to say that? No
I
one.
don't get paid.
Neither do I. This book came out in 2016. In 2016, I was almost graduating college, so you were probably still in high school. What year did you graduate high school?
2015.
Oh, lordy. So you were also... Okay, anyways.
So, no. So if it came out in 2016, that would have been end of my freshman year, start of sophomore year.
Yeah. So when this book came out, both of us were in college and not yet in the classroom proper. So you did your student teaching in elementary school, so you might have been in the libraries around then, but I didn't see it on shelves around until 2020, 2021. I started seeing it around, but obviously, I went straight to middle school, so this is definitely third, fourth grade reading level, which is not bad at all. Adults don't read enough kid or middle grade books.
Retweet.
Yes, they're so good, and we'll get into whether or not this one. I'm not gonna lie, I loved this book. I read it, and I was just continually shocked. I got up from the library on my Kindle, and I just kept highlighting and highlighting and highlighting and highlighting, and I have yet to turn my Kindle back to airplane mode off because I don't want my notes or my little highlights to go away. I need to mark them. I'll have a physical book. But anyways, I loved this so much, but I also again went into it without any other knowledge besides there's a robot that ends up on an island.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I knew, and then I knew there was a duck involved somehow, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. Peter Brown is an author and illustrator. He has illustrated and wrote lots of kid books, lots of picture books.
Writing children's books is really an art, and and going back to the adults don't appreciate children's books enough. People who write children's books, especially good ones.
Good children's books, yeah.
Even ones like Polar Express, which aren't good.
You're just saying that because didn't like my thoughts on it.
Oh, well, yeah. Polar Express is not it's not like a book. It's not like a book in the sense of it has a very coherent story to tell, but the vibes are immaculate.
Like I said in the podcast, go listen to that episode. So you agree with me?
No.
Okay, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because that's a different podcast. Maybe one day when we have a Patreon, we can have Amanda Gets Mad at Genesis Opinions minisodes. Mad as in disagrees.
Yes.
But yes, illustrating obviously is an art because it's a visual art, like drawing, illustrating digitally, whatever, however they do it. But writing kids' books is such a hard thing to do because either you have to go the developmental way, what's appropriate for them developmentally, like the Chicka Chicka Boom Boom books, the ones that are just here's letters, we're recognizing patterns, there's that kind of side, and then there's the rhyme, right? Then you get to the rhyme part, and then you get to actual story forms, but it has to be done so carefully to both be appropriate for that child group age, whatever you're going for, but also still challenging them.
It's a very fine balance of making sure that you're creating this new vocabulary and exposing children to it, but not making it so that they don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. It needs to be understandable, but also interesting.
Also, to all the parents that I'm sure listen to this podcast, please read to your children.
In general, yes. If you have a kid in your life, Get them a book and read it to them.
I don't care if they can read it on their own. They need to be read to.
Yep. But this book, reading this, not only did this book like make me so incredibly happy and cry multiple times, but also it's a fantastic book for kids. Like, and he's talking about big picture questions that me, an adult, does not like to think about. And I absolutely loved it. I'm going to reference this as we go through. On his blog / website, there is a article that he wrote, I guess, or a blog post he wrote about the process of his creation of this book. And it's including pictures, including influences. It's very interesting, and I will put that in the show notes if you're interested in reading that. This book, if you've not seen the trailer for the movie, which is also one of the best animated movie pictures, so I'm excited to watch it. And
Nominees,
yes.
Just to clarify.
I was thinking faster than I was talking, which happens often if you've ever listened to any episode of this podcast. Yeah, as of recording this, the Oscars have not happened. I'm just excited to talk about this. I also read it almost 2 months ago, so hopefully my brain remembers my deep thoughts. It probably will. But it starts off with describing a cargo ship that has crashed, and there are 4 crates of robots that have landed on the rocks, and only one survives, and that ends up being our main character, Roz, which stands for Rosm. 7176 or 36 or something like that is her technical number. But I wrote it down. 7134. Shout out Passionessa.
Also, sorry guys, I didn't take any notes. It's fine.
They're not going to notice the difference, honestly.
Yeah, it's true.
Janessa will.
Yeah.
I love that they decided to name the robot Rosm because of the OG robot in literature, the 1920s story.
iRobot?
No. The word robot comes from the 1920s science fiction play by Carl, I'm going to say this wrong, Capek, Capek. The play is called R.U.R, which stands for Rosm's Universal Robots. So that's first
a trivia fun fact for those of you who like to play Chrono online, because that's one that they use a lot. Robot first used.
Yes.
1920.
But so I thought that was a fun little thing. All the robots are like scattered across the rocks, and then otters come around, and they decide otters are there's so many animals in this book, and he does a really good job of characterizing them to how they actually act, and not just how we as people have attached characteristics to them.
Yes.
Right? So otters here, they're in like kind of a pack, which they do tend to stay in packs, and they're just curious, and they start pushing buttons and just moving stuff, which is what otters do.
Yes.
And as soon as they push a button that happens to turn on the robot, turn on Roz, they run away, which is like very otter behavior. Rosm wakes up, and she essentially evaluates everything that's around her. She's standing in the tide pools of this beach, and she's like, I will become a better robot. When not needed, I will stay out of the way. This is her original thoughts
and programming. Well, because
programming.
Her entire programming is to learn and to grow and to base off of the thing input around her. And then so she starts off being well, obviously what a robot does, according to my programming, is learn and stay out of the way. Fun fact, it's hard to stay out of a way on an island in nature.
When that is not your intended environment. Yes. What I also like about the beginning of this is obviously the storytelling. I really like it. It reminds me more of a fable than a science fiction book. And I really like that. It's a modern fable, essentially, right? Because the animals all have characteristics that interact. It's almost a fable, right?
Okay.
Fable-esque. But I really like that we don't know anything about where this robot comes from. And I also really like that she knows nothing about it. Yeah. So we're on the same page. And the fact that we don't know where she comes from is not really important for this book.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really like that choice.
Well, until the end.
Well, yeah, but that's,
Well, see, and this is the thing that I'm going to say, and this is not a judgment or characteristic at all, but literally I was reading this book, and 2 sentences in, I was like, I'm not going to be able to take notes on this. And it was just, this is the most experience of me having no thoughts, just vibes that I've ever had in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, is this what Janessa's like all the time?
That's how I wish I was all the time. That's how I pretend to be all the time. But like that is, I mean, part of that is because reading a book written for 10-year-olds
doesn't require a lot of deep critical analysis and thinking.
Exactly. And also the chapters are so short, which were very intentional, which is appropriate for this age group, right? So for us, it's like, oh, a page and the chapter's over. Okay, we're going to read 2 pages and the chapter's over. So it's a lot of stop and go until you get into the flow of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then until the chapters get a little bit longer as you kind of get into the story. It's a lot. It's also a lot of like kind of setup of, oh, you know, there's a crate and then there's animals and then the robot wakes up and the robot doesn't know what's going on. And I'm like, cool, me neither.
It's a lot of like teaching kids how to make good inferences for what's happening later. It's like, okay, so there's this robot. What do we think is going to happen? Oh, it's going to turn on. What do you think it's going to do? Like, what would you know, it's very much leading to those questions, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just definitely a like, okay, I'm an adult reading this book. So like, definitely.
Well, again, not a criticism.
No.
It's just like, it was hard to have any like
you have to change your mindset almost.
Yeah.
Right? Because when we read books for the podcast, we are I'm trying to analyze them with notes just so I can like have a coherent conversation, because Lord knows we need any sort of help to have a coherent conversation you and I together.
You do not have to at me like that. Excuse me.
I was adding us. You didn't listen. But like what I loved about this is it'd be like a page and a half of like, you know, description of what's going on, and then there'd just be a line that I'd be like, what? like, and it's not all of them was, you know, super like deep, but like for example, like when she's leaving the shore, it says like a hatchling breaking from the shell, Roz climbed into the world, like stuff like that. Like it is simple, but like the way it's crafted within the chapters and within the actual plot of the book, it just like it's just good.
This book is really gorgeously written.
Yes,
is what you're kind of getting at, to summarize.
Yeah, and I highlighted so much in my Kindle. I was looking at some of the things.
This is a book that I really, really hope continues to sort of catch on in popularity and becomes like, you know, like one of those books that everyone and their mother had to read for school.
Yeah. And I was talking to my my cousin's kids over Christmas break, because the oldest one is 11. So I was like, have you read this? And she goes, oh yeah, we had to read that last year, and I've read the rest of the series. And I'm like, did you like it? She's like, I really liked them. Which I'm like, but so even in, you know, small town Montana, teachers are like, it is becoming a book that they read every year, that a teacher reads every year.
Yes.
Which is nice. But like,
for the exact reasons that you mentioned, it's really good for teaching inferencing.
Yeah, I could talk about these like random little quotes throughout. I'm not going to, because I highlighted so many of them. But if you follow me on Instagram at Read the Book First, I will be putting my favorite quotes on a post. Go follow me on Instagram, please.
Yeah, it's fun.
Roz's awakening. She is realizing like her survival programming realizes that she's in water and she has to get out of water, so she leaves the water. Then she's dealing with the like sandy parts of the beach, and then she slowly, this island that she's on, like she slowly goes and explores it. Like it goes from the beach, the rocks on the beach, to some sand, to like a forest with like trees. She gets attacked, quote, by the trees. A bunch of like nuts fall on her at some point. So she runs up the mountain, and she eventually gets to the top of this mountain of the island. And she just kind of stands there for a while. And the illustrations in this book are gorgeous. They're done by Peter Brown. I would get a tattoo from this book. Yeah. I love this kind of art style, which is something that we can talk about more when we get to the movie, because it's way different how they depict stuff, which is like understandable.
Yeah. Well, this is very like stylistic and very like blocky, and that it's hard to make that work well in an animated film. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense why they changed it, and also like Peter Brown is a book illustrator, not a movie animator. That's a totally different art form, right? So yeah, so it's understandable. It's just like, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they depict everything in the movie. But as like, that's one of the, I think, pluses of this is that the illustrations are not overly done. Like there's not one every single chapter. When they're there, they're like, it's just very well edited and curated. curated as they go through this. But the picture of Roz at the top of the mountain of the island, I love that one, like specifically, like sticks in my mind. But she is up there for a while, and
this was the other reason I stopped taking notes, is because or didn't try and take notes, is because if I thought too hard about the robot by itself with no direction, trying to understand everybody but not having anything, I was going to get too sad.
I mean, it is sad at the beginning, and like that's so it is sad, but like you need, like in any good story, you need to have something bad or sad or hard happening to the character for it to change, right?
It's like 90% of the reason why parents don't make it out of children's books.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Every Disney character doesn't have a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I did notice by the time that she's on the top of the mountain, so far the book has mentioned otters, a lizard, a badger, vultures, moose, and a sparrow. And I live with a biologist, and I asked him, I was like, in what biome do moose and lizards live in the same area? And we were talking about it, and we figured out that the only area that moose and lizards would live together is like the border of California and Nevada, because lizards don't live in the Pacific Northwest. It's too cold. Or if they do, moose don't live in those areas. Like the overlap is very minimal.
How is it on an island then?
So I was curious about that, and I looked on the same like inspiration of how he wrote this kind of blog post, and he wanted to make a futuristic world that we find out later, and then I've actually read the second book. We find out more about the world, but it's due to like climate change. He's like, I wanted it to make it that, so essentially the sea levels have risen, and places that used to not be islands have now become islands, to force, so on purpose, because of the robot and the technology side, but also so he could have a bunch of different animals that wouldn't necessarily be together. So that's like,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I thought at first I was like, this is dumb. The lizards and moose don't live together. Me and my Alaska brain was like, I know this, I know moose. But then I was like, reading this, I was like, oh, that's actually really smart and good world building. And thank you, Mr. Brown.
Well, my thing with the world building is I was like, how is there only one bear on this island and like one pair of cubs? Are they about to go extinct? Is that what that is?
It's because it's just higher sea level. So they're just probably more dispersed. And it's a small island.
Yeah.
Like, if Roz can get to the top of it in, like, 2 days.
I'm thinking about the future. The future. What are the bear cubs going to do? Are they going to have to, like, leave the island to find mating couples? Or are they
That's what they do right now.
They leave islands?
Yes, that's how do you think bears got to the island I lived on?
Because of ice flows and glaciers and shit.
Water. They swim. Moose swim, caribou swim,
I knew
bears
most swim.
Then a bear can swim. If a moose can swim, a bear can swim.
I just never thought about a bear swimming.
Yeah. I mean, that's not like they're swimming miles and miles. It's like just from one island to the other. So I wasn't worried about them because, but like if they had a ton of bears on this island.
Oh, yeah. Everyone would be dead. No,
everyone would be dead.
Bad.
And also it wouldn't make sense for the characters themselves. Like they need to make a cute little community.
Yeah, well, you can't have like a bunch of apex predators on an island.
Correct.
Like everyone just dies.
Apex predator. Sorry. Anyways, Roz is on the top of the mountain and she's looking out across the island. And here's a quote that I loved. She says, "As the robot looked out at the island, it never occurred to her that she might not belong there. As far as Roz knew, she was home." And I love that. Roz here is like, we know that she is not where she quote belongs, but she's just like, okay, I'm gonna survive and stay safe, and this is my home. Okay, next step, right? And I love that. And so
it's also like a great little like and we'll talk about this more later about like when does Roz become her own conscious being.
Yeah.
But one of the very first steps is like this understanding, because one of the things that happens shortly after this, correct me if I'm wrong, is that she's like, I need to learn from the animals to how to survive because otherwise I am going to die.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So she goes down the mountain and she's trying to observe how they're surviving, but she finds the cave. It was one of the first interactions she has. She finds the cave and she accidentally wakes up the bears, and the bears chase her. But then she ends up climbing a tree and throwing pine cones at them because she learned from earlier when the pine cones fell on her, and that's how she defends herself. And so like we see that throughout. Like she like observes, reacts, learns, continues.
Mm-hmm.
She starts to learn how to camouflage from the stick bugs, and she sits in the meadow as like grass and just observes animals for like days. And the animals will be like, oh, there's a new little patch of grass. Interesting. And then they keep on going.
Yeah, because anytime she tries to like observe them as herself, the animals are
They say monster specifically.
Yeah, they're like, monster, oh my god.
Mhm.
Scary. And it's like, I mean, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So the animals do not like her, but then eventually, while she's sitting in this meadow, a wounded fox comes in and it's like, hey, I need help. There's been porcupine quills have been in this face. And so Roz takes the quills out, and like then she learns like, well, the fox was trying to attack the porcupine. And this is another thing I like about this book, is that it doesn't like make all of the animals are vegetarians. It's like, no, animals are still trying to eat each other. Like, it's like nature is still nature.
Nature is still nature.
Storm is destroying homes. Like, animals are starving.
Animals eat each other.
Animals eat each other. Like,
they freeze to death.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought that was nice. But this is when like animals start to like accept her being around because she helps the fox.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're still like very wary of her.
And it's also like how she's like, the other thing that's good about her observing is, and the other thing that's really interesting is she learns how to talk to the animals.
Yeah, the animal language.
Because like the first thing that they sort of say and emphasize is, you know, when she finds the bear, they can't talk to each other because she's been programmed to, of course, talk in human.
Yeah.
And humans, sorry, can't talk to animals.
Yeah. We're not Disney princesses.
Speak for yourself.
One day after the quill and fox, helping the fox, she's out and about and there's a rock slide, and she ends up falling with the rock slide and ends up, or she causes the rock slide. Does she cause it?
Yes,
she
does.
causes the rock slide, and it ends up killing two adult geese and
a whole bunch of
and
eggs.
a bunch of eggs, but there ends up being one egg left, and so she takes the egg
to the other geese,
and the other geese all are like, that's not our problem, like, we got enough to worry about.
Well, and that was the other interesting part about her observing, and like, you know, once she helps the fox and she like realizes, oh, if I want to exist in this community and if I'm helpful, they will help me to survive.
Yeah. And then there's also where she sees the opossum performing being dead.
Yes.
And she has a whole bit of being like, okay, I need to perform like the animals. And that's right around the same time she finds this egg and asks the goose for advice. When the goose aren't like, good luck on your own. It's more like, we can't do anything about it. You have to figure this out. But like, guess you're a mom now. And she's like, okay, I'm going to perform like a mother. Yes. Like, that's her like thought process is not just like survival. It's like, okay, I'm going to act like this to fit into the situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, and like, there's a little bit of like, well, you know, I caused this thing to happen and I must take responsibility.
Yeah.
But also not because she's a robot, but also that was a vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Like we start to see a little bit of like empathy here.
Yeah.
And it's weird because she's a main character, so like obviously we're gonna be empathetic towards her, you know, via the writing, but also we believe in general that most main characters are empathetic. Like that's like, unless otherwise stated. But with a robot, you have that thought away, right? It's a robot; she's programmed, and we talk so much about programming here. So I think throughout this process, up until she gets the egg, we slowly see her not unprogram or learn her like she's not, I wouldn't say she's quite to like have her own unique consciousness yet, but we see her growing that empathy for this world.
Yes. And it's kind of one of those very interesting, you know, one of the big debates about robot consciousness in general is like, if we have a robot that is built to learn and decide and survive, or like self-exist, because really that's the thing that makes me the most like interesting from the very get-go about Roz is her own drive for survival. Because really, like, if we're talking about robot consciousness, one of the things that is often lacking in most cases is robots don't have their own drive to survive. They are built to follow their programming, which is why sometimes, you know, robots will like robots that are meant to be drones will like fall into rivers because they don't get they like they're programmed to drop off the thing, and they drop off the thing, and then
it's more task to task rather than like
regardless
bigger picture.
of your own like survival.
Yeah.
And from the very beginning, one of the things that sets Roz apart is that she is very much like, oh, I need to do this so that I don't die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like something that happens from the get-go. But more and more, like one of the debates of robot consciousness is if something is built to learn and survive and adapt, how different really is it from like a human child?
Mm-hmm.
Because children learn and adapt and learn how to do things by watching other people. So when people try to like argue, well, what is consciousness? I'm like, well, is this not consciousness?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the questions that the book is asking. And like, and I'll talk about the second book once we get to the end, because it takes a turn.
And takes a turn?
Yeah. Anyways, so she gets advice from this old goose, who the old goose was like, oh yeah, you just need to feed it and make sure it doesn't die. It's called motherhood. Oh, it's nothing, just this. Like the old goose is like, oh yeah, you just make sure it gets food and is alive. It's nothing. Like she's very dismissive about her goose motherhood, which is interesting. In general, you know.
But it's not that weird because goose are one of those animals. They have a lot of eggs, so that they can.
Yeah, like
some of them
like
survive.
most birds.
Yeah, like most birds.
They have eggs every year.
It's not, there's the two.
Yeah, but it's just interesting because we're hearing the voice, like it's an anthropomorphized bird, kind of, as in the way we're hearing its thoughts and it's communicating like. Like fable characters almost would, right? But then it's still like nature's gonna nature, unless like the book doesn't like go away from that. She's able to like hatch the goose, the gosling, and names the gosling Brightbill. And then so Roz is now a mother, which is just like, again, I didn't watch the trailer fully, so obviously if I had watched the trailer, I would have understood that's the plot of this book. I think for like part of it.
Yeah, no, it is. Sorry.
Yeah. But like, so when I read this, I was like, when the parent geese and the other eggs died, I was like, this kid's book is hardcore. and then I got to this part, I'm like, okay, so this book's about motherhood and robots.
Well, it's about like, because it's one thing that Roz has this like consciousness that means that she has a drive to stay alive, in a way that a lot of robots typically don't. But it's another thing just have that step forward of, oh, I need to do XYZ so that I can survive, and now I'm going to keep doing X, Y, and Z, which involves being helpful and being nice and being polite. And performing like an animal. Like this. And then you got a kid, and now you have to care about the kid. Yeah. She's speed running. She's speed running like becoming a self-conscious human soul. Yeah. 0 out of 10, don't do it. Unless you are Roz, the robot. But she ends up getting the beavers to help her build a house, which her and Brightbill call the nest. And they're able to stay warm. She's able to create fire, which is pretty cool. She goes to the beavers and is like, hey, can you help me build a house? And they're like, sure. Do this thing. You got to cut down trees for us. And she's like, okay. And then Roz doesn't need to sleep. And so she can literally work throughout the night, which is like one of the pros of being a robot in the wilderness. And so she just like starts cutting down a bunch of trees. And so then the beavers do that. And all the animals are like, oh, wait, she can help us with things that we can't do. Yes. And so this is like the turning point really, is that like, okay, she's adopted this gosling. So she's kind and caring in that way. And also she has value to us because she's able to do things that we can't do, like lift things and cut down these big trees and help us build, Just all of these various things. And like, I think like there's gosling, the garden. The gosling is the big part, I think. Yeah. Because everyone, she was starting to have people here and there that she was like, oh, we're friends. Or at least we're nice to each other. But like, everyone else is still like, oh my god, the scary monster. Yeah. And now that she's taking care of this gosling, everyone's like, oh, okay, maybe you're not a monster. Question mark. Yeah. A monster wouldn't adopt a gosling. But yeah, so she has a home. She starts letting the deer come in and eat
in their garden in exchange for their poop to make the soil good. She is all the animals are like starting to be nicer and nicer to them. Bright Bill learns to swim, which is like a really sweet moment because Roz can't go in water. And so she watches, but
there's this like pike fish
Yeah.
that comes in and like almost gets Bright Bill because all the other ducklings have like parents that can swim with them and protect them, and Roz can't. So Roz like straight up almost nearly overrides her programming to save Bright Bill.
Yeah. But also a big part of her programming is that she can't be violent.
Yes.
And so she can't even go and like fight the pike. That's against everything in her programming. And like so her biggest programming things that like throughout the story is that she can't be violent and she has to survive, which are her like two biggest things that she follows throughout. But Loudwing, who was the goose that was very dismissive about goose motherhood, ends up saving Bright Bill. But then the goslings start to grow and fly. So then we have the scenes where Bright Bill learns to fly and like literally like leave the nest, adventuring on the island.
So, and because this is like speed running motherhood.
Yes.
Bright Bill hits the like teenagedom. Is that before or after winter?
It's before.
Okay. So, and then they're like, why don't I have a mother and father like everyone else? Why are you so different? And Roz is like, oh, I killed your mother and father.
Yeah.
And I'm like, honestly, kudos for honesty.
Yeah. She's not gonna lie.
And then Bright Bill's like, well, where did you come from? Are there more of you? And she's like, yeah, kind of, but they're dead. He's like, but I want to see them.
Yeah. And so they go down to the graveyard.
They go down to the graveyard and they see the otters again for the first time. And like, they see the all the shattered remains.
They see an on and off switch on another robot, and then Bright Bill sees it on her, and they're like, what happens if you are turned off? Are you still you when you come back on? Like they start thinking about that. We also meet Chit Chat, the squirrel, who ends up becoming Bright Bill's best friend.
Yeah.
And the squirrel is annoying because squirrels are annoying.
Yeah. That was kind of what I got out of that too.
But they also, when they're down at the graveyard, they see another cargo ship going by. And so that's our second like hint, besides of the initial crash from the beginning. That's our second hint of like the world at large. But it just goes by. That's all, like nothing significant happens.
So the bears are going to swim to another island?
Yeah, they do that all the time. Yeah.
But there's not. But is there?
If you have like a bear that's like taking control of its territory, and there's another island, the audiobooks are amazing. They don't have like full like sound design, but like when like fun like stuff happens in like the nature, there'll be like nature noises, and sometimes there's like little music at the beginning of chapters. Really good audiobooks. Anyways, it's summer. Bright Bill and Chit Chat and Roz are exploring this island all summer. Bright Bill's learning how to fly. He's like studying how other types of birds fly. So though he can't obviously do it exactly because he doesn't have the right body and wings, etc., but he learns techniques of flying from that, which I thought was fun.
I thought that was so much
because he's learning that from Roz.
Yeah,
that's not a goose thing. That's a Roz thing.
That's a Roz thing. So like Bright Bill becomes one of the best flyers because he's like, oh yeah, you can catch this thing called an air current and like swirl up and down, like, and you don't have to flap as hard. And then it's just like, yeah, no, Roz, use that robot knowledge.
Yeah,
use that robot brain.
Towards the end of summer, the two bear cubs end up attacking Roz, and one of her leg pops off. A bear almost goes over the side of the cliff, but Roz saves him. And then the mom bears ends up being like, I'm sorry my two cubs were idiots. They're not going to act like this again. And I was like, you got your hands full, Mama Bear.
Yeah. I read that and I was like, that's such mom behavior. Like good parents.
And so when the bear brings Roz without her foot back to the rest of like the crowd at the nest, the beaver, raccoon, and woodpecker end up creating a foot out of tree vines and resin. And so now she's like almost like if you think about it, kind of like a cyborg, except for that part of her that's would have been human, like other cyborgs, is nature.
So like a bioborg.
A biobot.
A biobot.
That Bioborg. I don't know. I just thought that was like
I
just
like the
fun.
Biobot.
I like it. It's like a fun spin, you know?
Yeah,
It's like, okay.
yeah.
Now she's like literally becoming part of nature.
And it's also like it's just a nice like touch in general because it it makes sense because stuff doesn't last forever and things don't. Robots are not meant to exist in nature.
Yeah,
they're meant to be indoors like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another moment is like more and more is like Bright Bill, like Roz is developing more and more of these protective instincts to the point where I thought she fought the bear, or did she just distract them?
No, she was like, it's like defense. Like the bear like physically attacked, and she was just like trying to like push them off, not like violently.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Because I mean, they are bear cubs, so like yes, they're bears, but they're still cubs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah. Before Autumn, Bright Bill and Roz decide that he's gonna push the button on the back of her head to see what happens, and they have like this really intense like conversation, like, "Hey, I'm your mom, and I love you, and we're gonna try this, and if I come back, that's amazing. We know that, but we won't know it until we push the button." And I just like, which is such a heavy concept. Right?
Yeah, because it's basically like this young adult goose being told, "Hey, we're gonna euthanize your mom real fast and then see if she comes back."
Yeah, it's like, whoa, okay.
And also, you're gonna hit the button.
Both times, it's you're in charge. And so they put the button. She like shuts down, and then they push the button, and she comes back, and she has all the same memories. It takes like a second for her memories to reboot.
It was scary.
I was actually worried. And then we have Autumn, and the chapter on Autumn is a really beautiful chapter about changes in the world, and I really like it. It's chapter 51. If you have the book, go read it. Then we see Bright Bill learning that he like his instincts. Another thing I like about this book is they talk about the animal instincts, and so in the same way that they talk about Roz's programming. Yeah, they're like, and their instinct said climb a tree, and their instinct said
we got to go south.
We got to go south, right? And they have to trust their instincts. And I really liked that. It's like, yeah, it's hard to like leave the home that you're living in, but like also your instincts say you do, and it makes sense. Like it's warmer, you know? And so Bright Bill prepares for that, and he ends up being the leader of the flock. Kind of. Yeah.
So like there's this other guy that is promises to keep an eye on him. I forget what his name is, but he's like the big head honcho goose, and he has Bright Bill fly up front with him.
Yeah.
Because Roz is listening to their plans, and like the big head honcho guy is like, yes, everyone will fly with their family group, and she's like, excuse me, my son does not have a family group. How will he be taken care of?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, he's gonna fly up front with me, and then eventually we learn that they come back, but let's talk about this other stuff that happens in winter first.
Yeah. It's winter, and Roz is immediately like, I'm gonna be alone. What if I wasn't alone? What if I invited everyone to come live in my nest?
First she just kind of shuts herself off
for a couple
while.
Yeah, for a couple days.
But then like something happens to the roof, and like sun comes in or
falls,
something.
It falls through the snow, breaks her roof, which kind of like not wakes her up literally, but like makes her like think about it, and she, sees snow
like
for the first time,
and it recharges her battery too.
Oh yeah, because solar. I forgot. Yeah.
So it's not that she turns herself off; it's that she like sits in this dark hut for so long that she quite literally runs out.
She's like hibernating.
Yeah,
almost. She starts creating fire and realizes how many there was a big snow that winter, and she realizes a lot of animals are like freezing to death in the snow, and so she ends up. I think maybe it was the moose. I don't know. I think some animals asked to build a lodge for them, like hers.
What happens first is she invites all of these animals in, and she says like, "Hey, by the way, this is like the truce that you guys had when you discussed what to do about me."
Yeah. Well, anyone who's in the lodge cannot harm.
And then obviously when they go outside, people still eat each other and stuff. But more and more animals want to come in, and that's when she's like, I will build a second one that's big enough for the moose.
Yeah, and so she ends up building 5 lodges, and she ends up teaching the animals how to create a fire, which I think is really interesting, because like people talk about how when humans created fire, that's like when we were different from the animals. It's like how a lot of people say that, whether or not that's true or not. That you can debate that. But like fire is a very like human thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is like it's one of those things that is considered a mark of like humanity and like consciousness, and it's in Jungle Book. I know that's not the only example, but it's the first one that I know.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting here that Roz teaches them, but also Roz doesn't like necessarily warn them about the dangers of it. She does a little bit, but like I feel like
she doesn't really, because it doesn't occur to her.
Because she's never experienced.
She's never
a forest fire.
She's never experienced a forest fire. She doesn't have to worry about smoke inhalation, which, thank God that never happened to Bright. Sorry to have really dark thoughts about all the things that could have happened in this children's book.
But eventually one of the lodges gets caught on fire, and Roz is able to save the baby rabbit and also like put out the fire, and then she rebuilds the lodges, but then adds safety features.
Yes,
for the fire,
and she also teaches them this is how you are safe around fire.
Yeah,
and then the other thing that's really interesting, and I'm sure that it comes into play later in the second book, is they talk a lot about how this winter is so much colder and a lot harsher.
They talk about the climate changing.
Yes,
the weather changing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that like the animals. It's like when we think about climate change, wow, we think like it's from, in general, the grand populace thinks about it at a very like how it's affecting human life.
Yes,
and like obviously it's affecting animals just as much, if not more, because they're not causing it. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Anyways, I just think it's really cool that we have the animals here talking about it. And
they also talk like Chit Chat the squirrel, and the first time that I actually noticed him, talks about like how his grandfather had grandfathers that talked about how the weather used to be different and like this and this, like just showing how the time scale is so different for animals in comparison to like, because the great grandfather of my great grandfather is like a pilgrim.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas the squirrel was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just it's really cool. And it's not all about climate change, but it's just like it's there. It's an ever present.
It's one of the elements that make it kind of more fable, like he keeps insisting.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's just an element of the background, and it's just this is the way that the world is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like it's affecting them, but it's not like the main effect of them. I just find it very interesting, and it's very tactful how they add it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spring finally arrives, and we get like another poetic chapter about the changes of spring and the circle of life. Again, I really liked the book, and it's very poetic, and it made me cry.
It's a good book. Bright Bill comes back, and this is where we find out about humans.
Yes.
Because Bright Bill's like, I saw more of you, and he talks about like this factory that they found where all of these different kinds of rozes are being manufactured, and how there was one in a greenhouse, and that's when the like big leader guy got shot and killed.
And then Bright Bill ends up leading them the rest of the way. They meet a pigeon named Graybeak. They go to meadows. Bright Bill sees way more of the world than Roz has yet to see. And obviously like it's very similar like to like when a mom has a kid that leaves the figurative nest, not the literal nest, and then like goes to a different state for college. Like they're seeing different like there's obviously connections there, but then you have the whole robot aspect on top of it, and it's just like it's just so interesting.
What a like fun little family dynamic that happens here. I was so scared that Roz was gonna like disappear or die before Bright Bill came back.
Yeah, but when he comes back, a big thing, because he's seen the humans and he's seen the other robots. He talks about how special he realized Roz is, and he's like, not just because you're my mom that makes her special, but like because of how you are.
Yeah, because they're these other robots, they weren't like you. They were just following orders. They were just doing XYZ. And I know that I've seen you do all of these things.
Yes.
So that was an interesting thing to add in, because then the narration does kind of speculate for a little bit of like, what was it about Roz that made her different? Was it a spark of consciousness? Was it just her circumstances? Or would this have happened to any robot?
Yeah. Like, is the spark from Bright Bill? Was it before Bright Bill? Was it after? It's all like, and it's uncertain, which I like. Then
I
Roz
have opinions though.
Yes.
Do you have opinions?
About what is from?
Yes.
Well, I think I've read the second book.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So we can talk about that at the end.
Okay.
And I can, if you want, I can give you
No, don't give me spoilers. I want to read the second book.
Okay. Anyways, Roz invites everyone to a party truce, which is essentially a big celebration about spring and the return of her son. And it's an anniversary of her waking up.
Yeah.
And as they're partying, we, the audience, knows from the narrator, who this whole time also is important, is it the third person, total third person?
It's a third person omniscient.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's very like mysterious who is telling the story, but they say like, and no one noticed, but there was a ship that went by, and we're like,
indeed.
Yeah. Bright Bill and Roz climb to the top of the mountain at sunrise to kind of just have like a bonding moment, but then they end up seeing a plane, and we find out that we have the Recos, which are 3 robots in the plane, and Roz meets them, and they are there to get all the robots that went missing from that barge. They were and we find out they were able to get all the robots that were on the barge that fell in the ocean. They got those, but they were missing the 4 that ended up on the island. And also we find out they're from Tech Lab Industries.
You mean they're from corporate?
But the animals help them stop the Recos from immediately getting Roz, but then Roz has to like go and hide throughout the island, and the Recos have guns, and it's a very like the chapters of this like sequence of events is like really intense because there's
Roz who still can't fight back because it's against her programming, and all of the animals, and Bright Bill, specifically Bright Bill being like, this thing is trying to take my mom, and all the animals being like, no, Roz is so helpful to us. Why would we let her get taken?
Yeah. Like the bears attack one of the Recos and rocks fall on the mama bear. She's like, okay, but
yeah, it was scary for a second there.
One of the cubs tackles that Recco into the river, but the Recco goes over the waterfall, but the bear doesn't. But again, another close call. Another Recco gets smashed by trees in a pit with pine cones and vines, and chases Roz to the shore. Roz hides in the seaweed using her like camouflage skills. Roz and the last Recco end up fighting over the gun. There's an explosion and Roz loses her limbs and gets deactivated. But then eventually the vultures get the gun. Bright Bill turns Roz back on. The animals shoot the Rico, and he gives a warning that more will come. And so like they're able to defeat those 3.
But it comes at a heavy cost, and Roz is like, I'm not really a fan of that.
Because Roz like realizes if she doesn't go, they're just going to keep on sending more and more of these robots with weapons to this island, and she understands that those animals will die, and she understands that not just her son, but like all the animals will die.
All of her friends, all of the people that she knows and cares about.
And so she decides to go onto the ship to meet the makers. She gives like this big like farewell to her home, and it's like so
and
sad.
She promises Bright Bill that she's gonna find her way back and that she'll get there someday.
It's so sad, but it's so like, oh no, it's like sad and hopeful and powerful and sad,
because it's not just the big part of it is the wanting to keep everyone safe part.
Yes,
but there's also a part of her that's like, I kind of want to know more about, now that my son has gone out and found out all these things, I kind of need to know about myself too, so that I understand
like who created me, why, what's what was their purpose for me versus my purpose for me, and then also like she wants to make sure no one goes there, but also if they shut her off, will she remember her,
or if they
memories?
Reset her? And the Rico robot is like, if you go in the ship, then just set yourself down, you'll be able to go back.
But and that's how it ends. And
so spoiler time. In the sense of, I read the first chapter and then I did what I always do. Like, as I'm like leafing through something and then like as I'm reading through it and I'm like, I don't really have the energy to read the next part. Let me just go ahead and read the last page. So I read the thing. I read the thing about,
you can't do that with children's chapter books, because like the like
I will do that with whatever I want.
I mean, yes, but like you're gonna get spoiled from the whole book by doing that. And children's chapter books.
Technically, I just had a nice little tiny piece about how she was on a ship.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, okay, she's on a ship.
Yeah. I loved this book. Like, it was one of my favorite books of 2025. What year is it? Well, yeah. It's so good. I love it. I'm gonna refinish the trilogy. I just parts of this book left me speechless, which is like sometimes it's wild to think about that. This book's meant for 10-year-olds, you know?
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah, it's really good. And I think that's like why I didn't take notes, because I was like, I need to be fully present in this book. I need to let it hold space in my brain instead of thinking about what pithy thing I'm going to write about.
Yeah.
Such a good book. Thank you for suggesting this one.
You're welcome. Thank you for going along with me being like, we're reading this, and you're like, okay.
I mean, it is your podcast.
Yes.
And you have, in fact, done a lot of books for me, so...
It's true. I don't have too many fun facts about the book, but I'll message you this link to the blog post because I think you'll find it interesting, Amanda. But it'll be in the show notes. But part of Peter Brown's rules for writing this book took him 8 years to write.
I would believe it.
Yeah, well, because he was also working on other stuff too at the same time, and etc. But this is the first chapter book he wrote. Everything else was picture books before.
Yeah.
Here are his rules for how he had to write. He said, I'll just read it after this, because he's talking about his writing process. After I mapped and plotted absolutely everything, it was finally time to write, but I was nervous, so I procrastinated by making myself some writing rules. 1, you're not a poet, just tell the story plainly. 2, keep Roz mysterious by writing in third person. 3, make the chapters as short as possible. 4, write with symmetry and repetition to mirror robots and nature.
Oh, that's clever.
5, give the narrator a conversational voice, especially during slow scenes. And 6, understand the motivation behind each of Roz's actions. Which, like, the way he like talks about his writing process, it's a post obviously made for teachers to show their kids the writing process, but you can tell the care and thought throughout it, and it's also really good writing advice. Like, those are good rules to have for.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's a writer, it is something that it is really important, is having an idea of what each character's voice sounds like. And that is something that I really did appreciate in the book is, having Roz always be motivated by X, Y, and Z. Because, robots do things to accomplish things.
Yes.
That is, in fact, what a robot quite literally is.
And they're usually programmed by someone else to do that person's goal, right? And it's like, I think this book is so fun because it leaves so many unanswered questions. And it's a good, first tiptoe into sci-fi for kids. Because it's, barely sci-fi. It's sci-fi it takes place in the future.
Fiction.
Yeah. But, it's just, it's baby step sci-fi. And it's just, it starts prompting kids to ask more deeper philosophical questions. And reading this book right now with the AI boom that we're trying to fight, but if you think about it, the kids reading this book are very well versed with AI, and so reading I just think it is so interesting to read this right now in the year 2025. Yeah. And I'm so excited to see the movie. I don't know if it's gonna win the animated best.
What's it up against?
It's okay. Little side note for Janessa's rants about the Oscar awards this year, because every year they're imperfect because it's an imperfect system. Anyways, all the categories are a mess this year except for best animated features. It is The Wild Robot, Inside Out 2, Wallace and Gromit, the new one that's on Netflix. Do you not like Wallace and Gromit?
No, I haven't seen it. I didn't realize there was a new one.
Yeah, it just came out on Netflix a couple months ago. The Memoirs of a Snail, which I've not seen, but the ads look really good. Flow, which is about that cat. It's about a black cat.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's it. I think there's just those 5. But those are all. I mean, I'm saying this. I have not seen a single one of them. But they're all.
You haven't seen Inside Out 2?
No, I missed it when I was in theaters.
Oh, same.
But like those are all movies that I would go see in theater if I had the schedule and the time, right?
And
Those
money.
are all movies I'm excited to go see, and so I think I'm gonna try and watch them all. I'm not gonna watch, I don't know, most of the other Oscars. I try to watch the best features that are interesting to me. I don't watch the ones that are gross or scary because that's not for me. I do like the drama of the Oscars. I do like the pretty dresses of the Oscars. I do love my friends who are almost movie buffs bantering about the Oscars, and I like being a part of those conversations, but we all like don't take it seriously, and we all do not care if our movie, like we all want our favorite movie of the year to win, but we know it's not going to because we're not film critics. Thank you everyone for listening. Make sure you listen next week as we talk about the movie, and we'll find out if it wins, which like we'll see if I want it to win. I'm going to watch all the animated nominees. Anyways, thank you for listening. Follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Give us 5-star ratings. Nothing else besides 5 stars. Thank you. And remember, read the book first.